It's so good to be here on a Monday, right? Like just coming off of yesterday and Easter, and yesterday was such just an awesome day of one, just reflecting on what it actually means that Jesus has risen from the grave and what that means for us today. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But to spend time with friends, with family. Maybe some of you didn't get that opportunity. Maybe you spent it was another holiday or another reminder of being away and being apart. And if that's the case, one, I just want to tell you I'm sorry. I know that this is hard, and in that it's okay to grieve, it's okay to complain. I was challenged by a quote from Dallas Willard today that he said that faith and complaining are not mutually exclusive. That in fact, most often, what keeps us in a cycle of complaining, what leads us into despair and depression, is that we don't feel like we can take it to God, that somewhere along the lines we've thought, no, I'm not supposed to bring it there. Which reminds me of today, what I read today is Jesus, when he appears to the disciples in the midst of all the things that he could say or do, as he appears in that upper room, he says to them, peace I bring to you. And I thought about that, and I thought about, what is Jesus talking about? Like, is it peace from, like, are they at war? Like, that's oftentimes when I think of peace, it's fighting and peace in the sense of maybe political or social turmoil, but in reality, I think about what those disciples must have been feeling at that time. It says that they're locking themselves in a room, that there's this fear, yes, of physical torment, of physically being found out just like Jesus was, but there's also got to be a sense of discombobulation, of confusion, of, I thought we were following Christ, and I thought he was going to do this amazing thing. We even professed him to be the Messiah, but that didn't go well, right? Like, I mean, that, let's be really honest. We have the aspect of revisionist and revisionist history or hindsight to be able to look back and go, oh, A leads to B leads to C, but they're in the midst of it. So they're kind of going like, unless they just kind of got blind faith, they have definitely not heard the good news that Jesus has returned yet, because he hadn't returned yet. And so they're locking themselves in their room going, okay, there's some confusion, that there's got to be some fear and some anxiety there. Got to be some self-doubt. How could I be deceived? There's got to be some shame of, man, we just betrayed our best friend, our rabbi, our teacher, our mentor. Like, there's got to be all these different things going on. And so it's almost as if Jesus, when he shows up, strikes right to the heart of the matter and says, peace. And then he says, I'm now sending you out. And they're right there connected. They're the same verse, that they seem to almost imply that what we're carrying out is peace. And I've been thinking about that and challenged by that, of one, in two ways personally. Maybe for some of you, yesterday was the first time that you've interacted with Jesus, the first time that you've been challenged, the first time that you've been exposed to this idea, this concept, or this thought of the gospel. And so today it's now like, now what? Peace. But also for those of us that are believers, followers of Christ, I guess I would just say, I would challenge you, I would ask you of, like, are you bringing argument? Are you bringing division? Or in the name of truth, name of justice, creating it more anxiety, more frustration, more division? Or are you a person of peace? I mean, Jesus would say in the Sermon on the Mount and opening the Beatitudes is, blessed are the peacemakers, correct? And so I've just been thinking about that somehow along the lines, I have separated truth and peace. But yet Jesus embodied peace. I've almost thought, well, to be peaceful is to be passive, to be reserved, to be overly gracious, to allow people to believe whatever they want, do whatever they want. But it's almost as if peace sees underneath all of that to the internal thought of, hey, I see you. You must be hurting, you must be struggling, you must be wondering, you must be confused, you must be trying to find some sense of control, somewhere to put your feet down on solid ground, some sense of rest. Because we've all longed for that, right? And we are not the source of those things, but we can tell people about the source. And maybe you reshape even their mindset of Christ, of thinking that Christ came to tell them everything that's wrong with them and all the things they can't do anymore. But instead, Jesus came to say, man, all that brokenness, all that hurt, all that separation, all that causes you to wander, I'm here to make you whole. to give you life and joy to the fullest, to be with you. And so I'm reminded of that today, and I want to just remind you that today as well. That's my Monday meditation, is just, how can I be a person of peace today? To myself, to my family, to my friends, to you, to my neighbors. God, I thank you. I thank you that you know exactly what we need, exactly when we need it. And Father, I confess and ask for forgiveness for all the times that I search for it everywhere else and think it can be achieved everywhere else, or that I pridefully that I can make it happen. God, help me to sense more of your, just trust more of your sovereignty, trust more of your plan, trust more of who you are. The fact that I call you God means that you are in control, and in that I should find peace. The fact that I believe you are good and loving and gracious means that I know that even in the presence of pain and suffering, that does last only for a moment, that in the morning joy does come, God. And so, Father, I pray every day expecting that morning would be the most joyous of my life, knowing that I will have joy with you forevermore and forevermore. Thank you so much for just massaging tenderly my heart, for looking on me with compassion. And God, I pray that I would do the same, that I would restore others in a spirit of gentleness, like Galatians says. That I would listen well, that I would love well, that I would be a person of peace. God, we love you. We thank you for loving us. We thank you that you've brought peace between us and God, that you have joined together what was separated. Father, that we are no longer slaves to sin, but we are slaves to righteousness, to grace, to love, to mercy, to faithfulness. And so, God, I pray we wouldn't worry about a week from now, 10 years from now, how are we going to be doing a decade from now, but instead that we would worry about today, for today is what you've given. God, I pray for my brothers and sisters that are beginning this journey for almost the very first time today, God, that met you yesterday, that heard of your gospel yesterday, that began to believe yesterday. Father, I pray that they would find you still near, because you are. We love you. We thank you for loving us. It's in your Son's name I pray. Amen. Love you guys. Praying for you. Pray for me. Love you.